Bye, Dad.
Bye, and be careful.
Yeah, I know.
Has it ever struck you that in many situations we just follow the rules that we've decided on without question? My daughter probably thinks I pick on her, but she always looks carefully when she crosses the road. She's a good girl. But when we get to work, it's not uncommon for many of us to take risks and break the safety rules. Maybe it's because we feel at home and secure, or we become complacent and blind to the dangers. I mean, nothing ever happens, does it? Protective goggles and gloves are not always worn. They just get in the way and make life more difficult, and so on. We take risks and shortcuts. And it's true, accidents rarely happen. But what about that day when one does? Is it worth the risk of suffering a lifelong injury, or of never seeing family and friends again? I've seen my fair share of incidents during my time here. Let me show you some things that have happened. This is a loyal and dedicated employee. He always makes sure the parts he delivers to the next operation are within specification, and he cares for the machine as if it were his own. Sometimes a blank can get jammed. When this happens, he often disengages the safety switch. It's quicker this way, and he wants to get the job done by the end of his shift. All he has to do is poke it back into position. It usually works just fine. But today is the day when it doesn't work just fine. The question is, will he be lucky? No, this time the odds were against him. He lost 2 fingers and will have restricted movement in what's left of his hand for the rest of his life. If he'd followed the safety regulations, this would never have happened. We do cutting in all our plants. So there are lots of sharp edges and metal shavings everywhere. Cuts are one of the most common accidents. If you work without gloves, you will cut yourself. Okay, it's not a fatal wound, and it will soon heal. And you can keep on performing your job as normal. But is it worth it? If you use the right protective equipment, such as gloves, you'll be much less at risk. We must have a high level of safety awareness. If we do the small things properly, the chances are that we also do right when the consequences are potentially far more serious. Look at this guy. He's a skilled professional, but also, I'm afraid, pretty careless. He's put his co-workers in danger more than once. On this occasion, he will make several serious mistakes. He knows full well that there are rules about working at a height. He's supposed to cordon off the area around the scissor lift and wear safety gear. But he ignores everything. It's usually fine. How close was he to causing a fatal accident? What do you think would have happened if this tool had hit someone? Death was only inches away. How do you think the repairman would have felt if the odds had been against him? How many people would have had a life changed forever because of sheer carelessness? These signs make it clear that smoking is forbidden and that there is explosive material in the area. Entering here with a cigarette, or even worse, using the room as a smoking area, is putting yourself and many others in serious danger. Even though there are clear signs up, and my co-workers know what's in the room, they still come here to smoke. Why? This guy has worked here for 10 years. He knows the rules, but he still smokes as he walks along out of pure habit. It's usually fine. But does he give any thought to the fact that he's not the only one working here? If he causes an explosion by not following the safety rules, many of us in here will be injured, and our families and friends will suffer. We can't afford to take such chances. Everyone can make mistakes, forget themselves. We have a responsibility as fellow employees to remind each other, just as I do. Safety is everyone's responsibility. If an incident occurs, you must report it, because it will help us prevent and reduce the risk of accidents. Some people here think I'm a pain. But I don't want to work at a company where anyone are in danger of being killed. No job is that important that we can afford to compromise our own safety and that of others. At all our factories, we use vehicles to lift and transport material. If you get in their way, an accident is inevitable. Driving a truck, for instance, comes with a great deal of responsibility. The drivers have to handle heavy loads while remaining alert to their surroundings. If you've ever sat in a truck, you know that visibility is often very restricted. Here comes a friend who tends to text and make calls as she's walking through the factory. What's more, she doesn't always stick to the marked off areas, and she uses the open transport door instead of the personnel door. It's usually fine. Thanks to the driver's alertness, no one gets hurt. But how do you think they feel? And what will happen when the truck driver gets distracted? Taking shortcuts and losing track of where you are when you text on your phone can end in serious trouble. Employees get run over and killed every year. This guy is a gambler. He takes great risks. We can't afford to do this on the factory floor. And this time, he's going to regret his decision. These straps are worn and were ready for replacement a long time ago, as they can't take heavy loads. But he ignores this, hoists the rods up, and begins to move them. Using worn and broken equipment is serious. Moving the load over his fellow employees working on the floor under the traverse crane is even more serious. Stop! Stop! Move out! How do you think it went? All I want to say is that if everyone involved had followed the safety regulations, nothing would have happened. Being focused and putting safety first is important. Sure, it's usually fine, but sooner or later, accidents will happen. And if we all follow the safety regulations, they won't cause injury and death when they do. Remember that we're all role models for each other, for new workers, and for our visitors. And we all want to get home to our family and friends at the end of every workday.